Salutations, ladies and doom. Welcome to Podcast The Storm. We're socially awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all around nerds convene, talk, and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello and good evening, everyone. And yes, we will be discussing the recent thing that happened. It, we did find a couple articles that do relate to our sort of niche of things. So yes, we will be addressing the topical thing.
And I'm host last time. I want to be the brains of pop culture. I am somewhat against this because I would prefer we let things simmer down before we cover something. But
Mm.
we have stuff here, so
And one of the articles that is recent event related seems to have been engineered in a lab just to piss me in particular off. So I will grab the metaphorical pitchforks and/or torches as and when we get there.
alright. I'm just waiting for the article to load.
Yep.
Uh, alright. Uh, Hopefully it's done loading as it is. So this is from Jezebel.com. Update to the Jezebel Charlie Kirk story by Jezebel, published September 8th, 2025. A note from our editor's subheader. Um, so I guess I should preface this. I had no idea who Charlie Kirk was until I heard about his shooting. Uh,
I knew who he was, but I hadn't had much familiarity with him outside of seeing the occasional YouTube short about him or taken from one of his discussion videos. To me, he seems like an entirely mostly milquetoast dude. Why him of all people would get the Six Emperor Tyrannus treatment? I will never understand, considering there are so many worse people in the like commentary scene. Even if you believe in all the mainstream media histrionics about fascism and so on. But then again, maybe that's part of the reason why he was so reviled. Because it's easier to hate the firebrand. It's easier to hate the Richard Spencers or the Nick Fuenteses or even the Lotus Eaters, especially recently. But somebody like Charlie Kirk is just a dude. It's kind of like it doesn't particularly surprise me that Andy No was the guy who ended up getting put in critical condition twice by an Antifa mob because again, it's it's not only is it easier to hate the fire or not only is it easier to deal with the firebrands, it also I think fits in their framework about how the world should operate, i.e., um, when your enemy is behaving like an enemy, that's sort of more existentially satisfying because that's how these people with their histrionic beliefs and conspiracy theory conjectures think the world should exist, i.e., when the enemy that you've nominated actually starts acting evil, it's a lot easier to accept that because, well, of course, the guy we call a fascist is going to be evil because that's why we call him a fascist. But when somebody like Charlie Kirk has more or less the same views, although be it moderated somewhat, and is just a relatively reasonable guy, I think it might rub them existentially the wrong way. Like, it's harder to deal with someone on the other side being reasonable than it is when they behave like the enemy you've turned them into in your own head. Anyway, moving on though, because this this one's gonna be a doozy, my friends.
Right. um. Okay. I'm not gonna really have anything to say. To be fair, which seems to be often with Dalton's articles.
To be fair, you got me on this show specifically to talk when you didn't have the wherewithal to. So this is this is me fulfilling the function that I'm supposed to fulfill. God damn it!
Editor's note: on Monday, September 8th, we published the humorous piece titled "Some Etsy Witches to Curse Charlie Kirk." The piece was intended as satire and made it absolutely clear that we wished no physical harm. We stand by every word.
I've read the article. You lying liars. There was no tongue in. Well, okay. There wasn't really much in the way of funny because it's not true humor, which is what the satire excuse would imply. There was a lot of funny because it is true humor, and that's why I'm not willing to accept satire as an excuse. If you're if if the premise of the joke is this guy deserves it, which is what the premise of the article seems to be, you don't get to then pull the satire card. If if the joke was if the joke was something along the lines of this is an absurd thing, then maybe you would have an argument. Although that still wouldn't save you from my ire, because I don't think that spellcasting is an absurd thing. But at least you would have the defense of we don't take this shit seriously excuse. But that's not the article as written. But anyway, moving on.
But in light of Wednesday's events and on the recommendation of our lawyers, we have removed the text. To be clear, the decision was driven by an abundance of caution for our staff and to avoid the piece being misused in a tense and volatile environment, not by a change in our editorial judgment. We may republish at a later date, but out of compassion for the victim's family, we want to make that clear. We prioritize an end to violence over anyone wanting to read about Etsy witches.
I honestly wonder how much the lawyers thing plays in here. Because having read a bunch of Jezebel articles over the years, they meant it. They meant it. They actually did want some kind of magical harm wrought against Charlie Kirk, and they got what they wanted. They just can't openly say that because the lawyers would have a hissy fit, and or they might get sued. Though, frankly, in my opinion, they probably should get sued anyway. And I don't even care if the spell being cast was particularly effective or not in this instance, because while the average, like, fluffy bunny witch on Etsy or con artist on Etsy has very little in the way of skill or power, it still is worth saying something that that um uh they cast this spell on the Monday, and then by the Wednesday he was shot. So wait,
Sorry, I closed it real quick.
okay. I was gonna say because I thought they left the original text of the article attached to the article.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. It doesn't actually look like it.
Okay, well then maybe we should find an archive of the original because obviously most of my issues with the article were with the actual text of the article. I'm sure it is archived somewhere.
Give me a second. I probably should have done that when you first sent me the article. To be fair, I only really
Because-
use the archive for like when I hit a paywall or something.
Because when I sent it, the text was still attached to the article, even with the
Oh.
disclaimer.
Yeah, give me a second. Let's see if this. Hmm. Okay, give me 1 sec. Sorry.
Hmm.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, give me 1 sec. Pull that up.
Mm-hmm.
Go. Alright. Paid some Etsy wishes to curse Charlie Kirk. If the far right misogynist with a bad haircut wants to villainize independent women, Jezebel is more than happy to be the hag of his nightmares. It's a subheader.
Uh-huh. Just so we're aware, feminism has nothing to do with witchcraft, and I suspect I will be forced to elaborate on that premise many, many times over the course of this article. But just so we're aware, Jezebel, y'all are not the descendants of the witches you couldn't burn, TM. Y'all are the kind of moralistic harridans who would be pointing the finger in Salem 1692. So, and I would say that about all the feminists who try to appropriate witchcraft as a political aesthetic. Magic is too important to be used as your political fucking your political fucking weapon. And furthermore, when you actually look into the historical records of the witch trial period, the ratio of women to men stands at only 60-40. And if you throw in all the other witchcraft or sorcery related trials that weren't covered under maleficia, which it was the charge that was frequently or most frequently appended to women, if you throw in all the other sorcery trials and the vampire trials and the werewolf trials and so on, the ratio inverts again. So I don't want to see any of this witchcraft as a political aesthetic shit. But anyway, moving on.
The internet has ruined me in 1,000 ways, but one of its strangest gifts is that I can now buy a curse as easily as I can buy a phone charger.
I mean, there are other uses for magic that I would say would be slightly more constructive, assuming that there's any. Okay, because here's the thing. When you shop online for magical shit, this used to be a thing on eBay, but since Etsy became a thing, it's moved to Etsy. Like 2 out of 3 times, it's a con artist trying to con you. And even for the remaining third of this kind of thing, half of them are new agey, wickedy, fluffy bunnies who can't get a magical charge up to save their lives, and only that remaining half of the remaining third are any good at it. Now, mind you, given that 2 days after this he was shot and killed, there may be some actual competence in whoever you paid, or it might just be as simple as, given that so many people wanted him cursed, it might just be an overflux of, too many people aligning their intentions at once. But again, my issue isn't whether or not the curses you targeted at him are effective, which again, most of them aren't, even for the percentage of people who aren't conning you when they put these kind of ads in. But being that as it may, this article stands as a sign that that y'all didn't care whether or not you might be impinging something negative onto him. Y'all were fully willing to pay someone to cast curses on him, regardless of whether or not they would be effective. And to me, that is worth remarking upon. Also, the other part of it worth remarking upon is stop fucking using magic as a fucking political weapon. It is far more important than that. And also stop using witchcraft in general as a political tool for feminism, because those two things aren't related and never have been. But yeah, we'll get into that as the article goes on.
On the magical website Etsy, you can find a spell for just about anything. Don't want it to rain on your wedding day? There's a spell for that. Want the man who cheated on you to develop an incurable rash or premature balding? The Etsy Coven has you covered.
And again, as it stands, I'm going to use the same metric as I used to for eBay. Like 2/3 of people are just people trying to con you. One half of the remaining third are people who genuinely want to cast magic, but gosh darn it, just don't have the skill to. And only about the remaining half of the remaining third are any good at it. And even then, there's difficulties to take into account when you're doing magic for someone else at a distance. Generally speaking, if you want magic to be effective for you, you either need to have someone do it who knows you really well and also knows what they're doing, obviously, because again, magical competency and magical literacy are important. But 2, frequently it's better just to do shit yourself. If you want shit done, you should do it yourself. Because as a general rule, the less someone knows about you and the less skin they have in the game, so to speak, the less effective it will be, even if you're dealing with someone who's a competent practitioner. As a general rule, curses that are done at the spur of the moment are not very effective, even when wielded by someone who knows what they're doing. But that being said, like I said, regardless of the probable incompetence of the Etsy witches here, which, by the way, I don't want to disparage all of Etsy with this commentary. There are actual good practitioners on Etsy who know what they're doing, and frankly, Etsy seems like a godsend for someone looking for ritual accoutrements and what's known in the industry as materia magica, which is the tools and incense and herbs and things that you use for spell work. But as a general rule, if you pay someone to use magic for you, you're better off with it being someone who's relatively local to you and someone who knows you reasonably well. And 2, it's frequently better. You're frequently just better off doing it yourself. Although that requires that you actually take magic seriously, because people who don't take magic seriously are either going to get no result or they're going to hurt themselves. Those are pretty much the only two options. Either it will fizzle out entirely and you'll wind up wondering, well, I guess magic just doesn't work then. Never mind that you tried to jump the line and not develop any skills before practicing it, but that's neither here nor there. Or you will get attention, but it's the kind of attention you don't want because you weren't skilled enough or well practiced enough to get the right result. And sometimes lazy spellcasting is dangerous because even if you do have the power necessary to get something's attention, if you're not careful, you might catch the attention of something parasitic or dangerous to you. And that's where we get the based on a true story horror movie type stuff from. People who fiddle with things they shouldn't and then wonder when it blows up in their face. Anyway, moving on.
But the internet has its downsides. Exhibit A, Charlie Kirk. Maybe it's his obsession with telling women what to do or his aggressively large head, but the far-right podcaster's presence is more irritating than most. That's when I remembered there's Etsy. These days, witches cater to more than just personal grudges, and it's not uncommon for them to channel their energy toward thwarting Republicans. There's even a subreddit devoted to casting nightly hexes on Trump. Are you interested in punishing Kirk for the years of aggressive rhetoric he shouted at America's youth and anyone within earshot? Here at Jezebel, we're about to find out if there's a spell for that.
Well, again, considering that 2 days before you, or 2 days after you paid this person to cast for you, he rather abruptly shoveled off the mortal coil. I am at least potentially willing to lay some of the blame at your feet here. Whether or not the person you paid was A, not a con artist, and B, skilled at what they were doing, it is a case of cosmically unfortunate timing in any case. And at least now we can prove that you did in fact have actual malice against him in this regard. So, by the old school literal definition of this crime, you did in fact attempt to cast magic with malicious intent, which means that you are literally guilty of maleficia. Not competent maleficia, most likely, not serious maleficia, but you attempted, at least, to cast a spell 2 days before the man died, and you did so with gleefully malicious intent. So, by legal standards here, you are probably one of the most clear-cut cases of maleficia in the history of witch trialing. Moving on.
Alright. Who is Charlie Kirk? If you never heard of him, I envy you. He debates college kids for sport, pops up on Fox News, and founded the right-wing conspiracy theory factory, Turning Point USA. Billed as a non-profit, Turning Point is less about charity and more about funneling far-right propaganda into dorm rooms under the guise of educating young voters.
I hate to burst this particular bubble, but given how many nonprofits are just biased, hyper left-wing infiltration into various institutions, y'all don't have much of a leg to stand on. You're writing for fucking Jezebel, for God's sake. And if you don't believe that there are nonprofits willing to push a left-wing bias, that's probably because you consider a left-wing bias to just be the truth. Well, much like you, there are people who consider a right-wing bias to simply be the truth. I would frankly prefer if non-for-profit organizations didn't have political biases altogether, but given how many left-wing non-for-profit organizations there are, that explicitly operate with an intersectional social justice bias, I'm not going to begrudge the right wing having their version of it. I prefer you both stop, but given that I can't convince both of you to stop, the next best thing is for everyone to have their own say. Given that we can't stop people from being authoritarian moralist twats, the best thing we can do in lieu of that is to let as many different political perspectives have a say in the zeitgeist as possible. Moving on.
Through these various ventures, Kirk has transformed into a reliable pawn, parroting Project 2025 talking points and championing the owning of the libs. He's basically a fake news vending machine with a terrible haircut. Sadly, Trump's reelection only ensured I'd be seeing more of that god-awful haircut. Okay, I want to point this out. To be fair, there's fake news on like both sides, and I've stopped giving a shit about like proper news outlets and shit.
Yeah, because the mainstream media isn't worth the paper or digital space it's printed on anymore, and haven't been for a while. So there's that.
Right, and last thing, before I let you take the floor, the fact that they're going after his physical appearance, obviously, one shows their very biasness, which I guess this is like an opinion piece, mind you, but it's just a really
It's just spite. It's just good old-fashioned salty spite done by a bunch of feminist journos. And by the way, as long as we're putting the spiteful examination of people's appearance on the table, my darlings, have you seen the average feminist haircut with the various forms of hair dye? There's a reason why memes like Big Red or Trigglypuff have taken off. It's because there are so many bitter, middle-aged, hipster, feminist women who fit the stereotype of a bitter, middle-aged HR hag or Karen. So if we're taking physical appearance into account here, I'm sorry, but it's a tu quoque issue. You both look like absolute ridiculous harridans. Or we can ignore people's appearance and focus on people's ideas, which is the correct and succinct answer, in which case your salty spite is thrown out of court on the basis of it being nothing but a bunch of salty spite. Moving on.
Cornerstone of Kirk's nightmare ideology is his insistence that since gaining more independence, Western women are more miserable than ever. He tells auditoriums full of young women that our freedom is a flaw, not an achievement. He's obsessed with declining birth rates and idealizes the 1950s when women's only job was tending to children and husbands. If we all abandoned our careers and returned to motherhood, we'd be happier, according to Kirk. Indeed, he fails to realize that I would be happiest if he would just shut up.
Okay.
I don't.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sure you can say it a lot better than I can, but obviously I don't. Again, I just don't care about. Hold on. Let me make sure my words come out right here. Obviously, I believe this is oversimplification, but granted, given that he is obviously not far right, because I think that word is overused. But if this is something similar to what he has said, obviously I don't agree with it. Though I can see some point or logic to it, more so in the sense that there's this fierce independence, not even like among women, just about basically everyone kind of in my generation, Gen Z, right?
Mhm.
that has led to kind of a breakdown of not a breakdown of society, but like the declining birth rates and less marriages happening, and just like general like loneliness of just everyone, and uh, it does really kind of come.
Yeah. Everyone seems to be more inclined to misery lately. I don't agree with Charlie Kirk's solutions, but at least he's willing to acknowledge the problem. Frankly, I would prefer a world in which everyone was free to pursue their own ends, and then they would be left to their own devices when it came to the consequences of those ends. But yeah, I don't agree with Charlie Kirk's solution to this problem, and I don't think he quite properly diagnoses the problem. But at least he's willing to acknowledge that particularly women are more miserable now than they have been throughout all of human history, despite the alleged patriarchal nature of the past, which, by the way, the patriarchy as feminists envision it doesn't exist, has never existed, and probably never will exist, because most of the time, most of the restrictions placed on women in the past were not there to oppress those women. It was there to protect those women because the men of the past believed that women were so pure and virtuous that they deserved to be protected from the world in as many ways as they possibly could. And it was only upper class women who seemed to have any issue with that, as we can see by the number of suffragettes who were rich women who were upset that they didn't have the same rights on paper as rich men, even though, in many cases, the informal nature of female power was itself a protection. For example, one of the quintessential feminist complaints about the past is that women couldn't own property on paper. And I'm very particular about saying the on paper part of that. Because here's the thing, no one was stopping men from giving women gifts or letting women have access to property. The reason why men owned property on paper is because there was this thing called debtor's prison. And allowing women to be free from formal, overt, on paper obligations to their property allowed them to do this thing where if a man bought something for his wife and he defaulted on the ability to pay for it, he was the one who would be carted off to debtor's prison, whereas the woman, because she didn't have the paper trail to imply overt ownership, could buy things with her husband's money that he couldn't afford and not be held accountable for it. By which I mean, if you actually look at the reason why women couldn't, for example, sign contracts or couldn't, for example, own property on paper, it was a method by which people protected them. Because debtor's prison exists and debtor's prison is awful, and we don't want to subject women to the tyranny of debtor's prison, so we'll have her husband sign for everything, even if she buys everything with his money. So that way, when he when he defaults on that, it's him we cart off to debtor's prison, not her. Anyway, moving on. But that's just one example of a quintessentially feminist talking point that when you actually look at it in the historical context and the intention it was made with is actually a way in which the different rights between men and women benefited women by not subjecting them to the consequences of misused overt power. Moving on.
Okay. That history society has branded bold and assertive women as witches to silence them, since Kirk already assumes every liberal college educated woman is a feminist witch hell bent on destroying civilization, even recently declaring that the Jezebel spirit has just infected an entire generation of young ladies. Shout out. We're
Okay,
reclaiming it. If Kirk wants a villain, I'm more than happy to be the hag of his nightmares. Okay.
okay, here, okay, you explicitly are trying to appropriate my group's history here, so you can go fuck yourself. Society didn't brand women witches because they were too strong or to this or to that or to the other. The idea of a witch hunt came about during the early modern period, in part due actually to the Protestant Reformation and the Renaissance, because the hyper traditionalists among the church essentially thought that the Protestant Reformation and the emergence of the Renaissance was a sign of the apocalypse. And it was this apocalyptic thinking that led them to think if it's close to the apocalypse, the devil must be getting desperate, and therefore he must be recruiting witches. Witches existed, as in, like, the local village witch existed for hundreds of years before the burning times. Fuck.
What's up? Okay. And I think Donald is gone. Well, while he is gone, I will be reading something. Give me one moment. Alright, I will be reading Welcome to the Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. When I was a boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. He said, "Son, when you grow up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned?" He said, "Will you defeat them, your demons and all the non-believers, the plans that they have made? Because one day I'll leave you a phantom to lead you in the summer. Join the Black Parade." When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. Okay, I'm gonna skip the repeating there. Oh, no, never mind. He said, "Son, when you grow up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned?" Sometimes I get the feeling she's watching over me, and other times I feel like I should go. And through it all, the rise and fall, the bodies in the streets. And when you're gone, I want you all to know we'll carry on, we'll carry on. And though you're dead and gone, believe me, your memory will carry on. We'll carry on. In my heart, I can't contain it. The anthem won't explain it. A world that sends you reeling from decimated dreams. Your misery and hate will kill us all. So paint it black and take it back. Let's shout it loud and clear. Defiant to the end, we hear the call to carry on. We'll carry on. And though you're dead and gone, believe me, your memory will carry on. We'll carry on. And though you're broken and defeated, your weary widow marches on and on. We carry through the fears, disappointed faces of your peers. Take a look at me, 'cause I could not care at all. Do or die, you'll never make me, because the world will never take my heart. Go and try, you will never break me. We want it all, we want to play this part. I won't explain or say I'm sorry. I'm unashamed, I'm going to show my scars. Give a cheer for all the broken. Listen here, because it's who we are. Just a man, I'm not a hero. Just a boy who had to sing this song. Just a man, I'm not a hero. I don't care. We'll carry on, we'll carry on. And though you're dead and gone, believe me, your memory will carry on. You'll carry on. And though you're broken and defeated, your weary widow marches on. Do or die, you will never make me.
Okay, back to what I was saying. One, it wasn't just a matter of any woman who was out of line getting accused of witchcraft. Two, there wasn't even this gendered nature to it for the most part in the first place. And three, whatever gendered portion of it there was due to the fact that according to Christian religious cosmology, witchcraft was a misuse of the generative impulse, the sexual generative impulse, and the belief was that the generative impulse was more pure and stronger in women, ergo, A, because it was more pure, the devil would more want to corrupt it, and two, because it was stronger, it made them more dangerous if they became witches. But as I said, looking at the actual trial records, the ratio of women to men only stands at 60-40 when you talk about maleficia, which is the term most commonly translated in modern times as witchcraft. And when you throw in all the other sorcery or magic related heresy trials, the 60-40 ratio of 60% men, 40 or 60% women, 40% men actually inverts. Also, I've made this point several times before, but I will make it again for clarity's sake. When a woman was accused of witchcraft, the actual rationale of those people who were persecuting her was we have to persecute her in this life so that she might find redemption in the next one. Because frequently, when women were accused of witchcraft, the idea was, or at least the official party line was of the church, that she was tricked into it and that she didn't know what she was doing. The reason I point that out is because when a man was accused of witchcraft or sometimes other version of sorcery as well, he was referred to as a warlock, which for those that don't know is a word derived from an Anglo-Saxon word or phrase which meant oath breaker or traitor. The idea being when a man engaged in diabolical sorcery or in witchcraft, either diabolatry or maleficia, depending on the particulars of the situation, it was thought that he was actively betraying God and thus was an oath breaker, hence warlock. Whereas when a woman did it or was alleged to have done it, she was alleged to have done it under false pretenses, and therefore we must persecute her to save her soul, but we mustn't extend that same kind of empathy to men who do it because they must do it deliberately. I point this all out because when you look at these things in the actual historical context in which they happened and the actual reasoning of the people doing the things when they happened, this was not some sort of proto-feminist bullshit. I don't care what your gender studies 101 teacher taught you. Witches were not women, and even then, when women were more commonly attributed to maleficia rather than diabolatry, it was because there were things about women that the church considered to be more pure, thus more of a coup for the devil if he was to corrupt it, and more powerful, meaning that they were more dangerous when they were recruited. That had nothing to do with hating the women's or persecuting the women's because they're women's or persecuting the woman because she doesn't calm down or whatever the fuck. Also, another one of those lies that they tell about the witch trial era all the fucking time. We are taught to believe from like elementary school that no one ever actually called themselves a witch or practiced anything that could resemble witchcraft. This is false. This only became true in the latter part of the Burning Times, because frequently in the era before the witch trials, every village did either have a village witch or a village cunning man. They were informal practitioners of folk magic and folk healing and other forms of knowledge that was rare among the peasantry. And only after the aforesaid belief that the Protestant Reformation was part of some apocalyptic scheme by the devil did people start persecuting witches. The idea being they were the holdovers of old school pagan wisdom, and said old school pagan wisdom was probably just the devil playing dress up, according to the church. This was, of course, complete bullshit, and we can even see that in the trial records as well, because very rarely, if ever, does in the trial records the witch themselves, when there were actual witches put on trial, attribute their skills to the devil. Very often it was a pagan deity like Odin, or a other pagan quote-unquote entity like the fairy queens. But yeah, that is another lie they keep telling about the witch trials, and it pisses me off. There were people in almost every village who were the village witch, the village wise woman, the village midwife, or the village cunning man who actually did knowingly and willfully practice something that could be thought of as witchcraft. The difference is what the church defined as witchcraft during the burning times was tied into their belief that the apocalypse had begun, and therefore that the devil had started recruiting all the remaining pagan wise women and cunning men as agents. This has nothing to do with the actual folk definition of witchcraft, which usually just related to the pre-established pagan lore, but that's neither here nor there. There were, in fact, people who did practice witchcraft, although mostly not what the church would define as it, which required the devil to be involved, required a pact with an entity, and required it to, in some sense, be sex magic, because again, according to the church, witchcraft was a misuse of the sexual generative impulse. But it is a lie people tell that no one ever actually thought of themselves or practiced anything resembling witchcraft. It is also a lie that people tell that the gender was so disproportionate that it must have been a female form of persecution. And it is also a lie people tell that it was just people who were being women too hard or some shit. These are all lies. The only time it became this hysterical, irrational persecution that we think of when we use the phrase witch hunt was during the latter part of the burning times, because frankly, they ran out of the actual practitioners, and so they figured, oh, there might be a bunch of practitioners who are just lying about being practitioners, and away you go with the hysteria. But yeah, at no point was this some sort of feminist or patriarchal persecution. At no point was it this thing that was completely out of the blue or completely irrational, and at no point was it some precursor to late stage capitalism having an issue with strong women. It was a particular thing that happened at a particular time because the church, in particular, thought the end times had come and the devil was getting desperate. That was the main basis of the belief. But anyway, moving on.
Yep. Let me get up from the bed.
Why were you on the bed rather than sitting in the computer chair?
Oh, my back started to hurt, so I was like kind of stretching. Yeah.
See.
Yeah, I'm trying not to hunch on a chair anymore.
Mm-hmm. Which is probably good for you.
Yeah, I probably should have started doing that back when I was in middle school.
Mm.
But
Anyway,
I just
next.
maybe I should also stop slouching.
Mm.
Okay. Disclaimer: the ethics of cursing a stranger. Now, is it? Sorry, I ate earlier, so I've got like some burps going on. Now, is it ethical to curse a man I've never met? Probably not, but it is unethical to let him keep talking. But is it unethical to let him keep talking? Yes. So here we are in the gray area. Okay, I'm sorry. Can I?
Go ahead.
Isn't there like a whole First Amendment about freedom of speech? Now, granted, there are some caveats to that I'm aware of, but he's not. He's at least he's speaking and debating, correct? Or was?
Yeah, he didn't, as far as I'm aware, incite violence. He didn't incite persecution. He didn't say that violence was ever a solution to anything, etc., and so on. So most of the provisos to the First Amendment don't apply to him.
Also,
Also,
sorry,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think they kind of swapped the ethical unethical thing in the questions proposed.
Well, yeah, but also, while we're on this topic, even if you do genuinely think that what he's saying is unethical, which you are perfectly entitled to that belief, I would question the presuppositions that led you to that belief, but you are perfectly entitled to that belief that what he's saying is unethical. Here's the thing. There's this thing we have called a proportional response, which means that even if you think what he's saying is unethical, the correct response is to speak in return, to argue with him. I.e., you should counter speech with speech and actions with actions. And I'm sorry, but there is almost no thing you can say that will bridge the gap between speech being the proportional response and action being the proportional response. Now, if he was casting spells against you or paying someone to cast spells against you, then okay, mutual combat is perfectly reasonable. Again, proportional response. But if you are responding to his speech with spell work, you are the one who is engaged in what's known as escalation. He did not escalate. He wanted, in fact, he frequently encouraged people to respond to his speech with speech. That's why he debated people. That's why he argued with people. Because in his mind, and I agree with him here, the correct response to speech, however horrible, is further speech. Even really terrible things like actual card-carrying Nazis, they should be allowed to say we should build the gas chambers. As long as all they're doing is saying we should build the gas chambers and not actually building them, the correct response to a Nazi talking about we should build the gas chambers is to argue with him vociferously and mock him to his face. Because most Nazis, in my experience, are a bunch of hipster cunts who couldn't um, create a Shunstable if their life depended on it. But that's neither here nor there. Mockery and argument are perfectly viable means of responding to someone talking. Escalating from speech to actions means that you are the one who is escalating, and therefore you have a higher burden of proof. I can't think of anything that I would genuinely consider outside of the things that are already covered by the First Amendment, like incitement to violence or incitement to physical harm, or even or incitement to psychological harm, or whatever. Like, outside of the things that the First Amendment already carves out exceptions to, I can't think of any form of speech that would be so bad that it would justify escalating to an action. And as a magical practitioner, I certainly can't think of anything that someone could unironically say, again, that doesn't already fall under the exceptions to the First Amendment, that I would consider worthy of escalating to spell work. There are a lot of things that might conceivably get me to resort to spell work. I am not for one above cursing people when they genuinely deserve it. I prefer to quote the captain from Castlevania in this regard. Revenge is sometimes good, and bastards need punishing. But as someone who takes spell work seriously, I would consider myself a repugnant bastard if I responded to someone's speech with spell work. And yet you find it totally fine to not only curse someone as a result of nothing but their speech, but also to curse someone you've never even fucking met and curse them for no other reason than a ideological, philosophical, or political disagreement. You are absolute whores, frankly. You're cunts. And I'm not going to pull punches when I say that. As a magical practitioner, I find your actions repugnant and stupid and small-minded and idiotic. As a person with philosophical leanings, I again point out that you escalated, so you have a greater burden of proof than the person you are escalating against. And 3, again, this article, at the very least, is evidence of you using magic or trying to use magic. Again, I question the competency of the person you paid to cast the spell. But you did, unironically, try to use magic maliciously against someone you don't know for nothing but political and ideological disagreement, and you escalated from speech to action when you realistically shouldn't have. There is no gray area here. You are the bad guy at that point. You are trying to maliciously use magic because someone disagreed with you politically. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, magic is too important to be boggled down in politics. Unless and until someone is using magic against you for political reasons, and then of course mutual combat is perfectly feasible. Turnabout is fair play, as they say. But if you are the party that escalates from mundane speech to magical action, then you're in the wrong. And it is provably malicious in this particular case. Like, I also frequently was annoyed by the historical burning times frequently presupposing malice when there was no proof or even indication of malice. But in this particular case, we can prove that you were maliciously and flippantly trying to use magic to hurt someone for no other reason than politics and speech. That means you are unironically evil. Piss off. Moving on.
All right. Damn it. Sorry, my fucking sandal fell off.
You're wearing sandals in September.
I'm in my house. They're usually my slippers, too, so. Motherfucker, do you forget I'm poor?
No, I just, it, typically by now people move from sandals to shoes. Sandals were usually more of a summer thing.
I'm not gonna wear shoes in my house.
Anyway, moving on.
Also, we kind of got a heat wave here, so remember I'm in the Midwest.
Okay, so it's still relatively summery where you guys are at. That makes it at least a little bit better. I was like, usually by like midway through September, which we are definitely like midway through September, it moves from sandals and shorts weather to like jackets and sweaters weather.
Hello, Giant Turtle. Good to see you. I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well too, man.
Hey, DT.
Yeah, he's catching up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, just taking a swig of water there. I want to make it clear I'm not calling on Dark Force to cause him harm. I just want him to wake up. Also, no, I haven't forgotten about the V2 restore. Well, I have and remembered 3 times now when I was at work and couldn't do anything. But we'll do that after the stream if I don't forget. Okay.
Mm.
Wait, was that for me or you?
I think it was referring to me.
I don't know. We have a lot of conversations on these streams, so it's like I
Yeah.
don't blend there sometimes. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Moving on.
Okay. I want to make it clear I'm not calling on Dark Force to cause him harm. I just want him to wake up every morning with an inexplicable zit. I want his podcast microphone to malfunction every time he hits record. I want his blue blazers to suddenly all be one size too small. I want one of his socks to always be sliding down his foot. I want his thumb to grow too big to tweet. To ruin his day with the collective feminist power of the Etsy coven would be my life's greatest joy.
Again, I object entirely to your use of magic or witchcraft as a political weapon. Also, I object to your bullshit feminist theory nonsense. It is ahistorical and illiterate nonsense, as is most of the theoretical framework of feminism. And I am absolutely sick to death of people like you treating one of the most potent forces in this universe like a political lapdog. Piss all the way off, you evil cunts. Also, I'm gonna. You better have been very specific about this shit to the person you paid to cast the spell, because if you actually paid for a malicious curse, and now you're saying that you only want minor inconveniences. By the way, the accumulation of minor grievances like that is still malicious, and judging by the fact that most fluffy bunny witch types who sell out their skills on Etsy usually abide by the Wiccan rule of 3. So even if that was all you wanted for him, you're still on the hook for quite a sizable degree of malice here. And by the way, I'm almost positive that that was you joking. I'm almost positive that if you could get someone to do much worse to him, you probably would. You're just joking about it to keep it lighthearted for the sake of the article and piss off. Moving on.
Buying the curse. Naturally, I did what any serious curse would do. I typed curse enemy into Etsy's search bar. 5,000 results. Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Which it says something. It says something about you if the first use of magic you can think of is harming your enemies and not making your own life better. I'm not gonna moral fag about it because my tolerance for morality is also miserable. But being that as it may, I'm just remarking for the sake of the record. It does say something that you resort to magic not for love, not for power, not for knowledge, not for personal betterment, not for making the world a better place, but to spitefully be a dick to your enemies. And again, I'm not even necessarily opposed to cursing. If someone has genuinely wronged or harmed you, or attempted to, cursing is a perfectly viable solution to these problems, especially if you are fighting magic with magic, or to use Uncle's phrasing from Jackie Chan Adventures, magic must defeat magic, etc. If someone is being that malicious to you, especially if they themselves are using magic, turnabout is entirely fair play. Mutual combat is perfectly fine. But if especially if this is your first foray into magic and the first thing you can think of is, how do I make the people I don't like suffer? That does in fact say something about you. I'm not going to attach morality to it necessarily any more than I already have, but it does say something about you that you are so petty and small-minded that given the option of any of the things magic can do, your first thought is, how do I make the people I don't like suffer? Moving on.
Uh, yeah, it's written this. Should I try Karmic Revenge, Same Day, Bad Luck, Curse, or Insanity Hex? Or my personal favorite, simply Hex Republicans. The reviews were their own kind of magic. Ugh. 1 5-star review for a Cancer Crusher Curse read, she has such a sweet, charming, bubbly personality. Jador. So not exactly the Witches of Salem. These Etsy witches were streamlined for the internet age and spoke fluent emoji.
It's insufferable hipsters all the way down. That's not even a moral judgment. The insufferable, like, hot topicification of magic, just it as someone with more than 19 years of occult experience, an entire library full of occult books, treating magic like this casual strip mall thing, it pisses me off on a level that I can't quite put into words at the moment. But rest assured, when and if I burn you for this, I'm burning you not for morality's sake, but for sake of, this is why we can't have nice things. It's because even if someone has power, like 5 out of 10 times, they probably are just going to be this sort of hipster brat with it. It's it's like watching people skeet shoot with a loaded 44 Magnum. Have some respect for the forces you're employing and have some respect for the actual skill it takes to do this kind of shit. Or at least failing that, have a little bit of self-respect enough to take yourself seriously while you do it. And again, I don't want to moral fag here, but it does say something about someone if they can cast curses for people and still be a bubbly little hipster bitch. If you're gonna curse someone, at least do it with the like grandeur and somberness that it deserves. Because, like, again, I'm not opposed to cursing someone, but if I am so inclined to curse someone, I'm going to be very serious while I do it. Because if someone does something to me that justifies cursing, it's gonna be when I'm well and truly in the fuck you can freeze mold. I'm not going to do it in this cavalier, like, idle fashion. Serious magic should, at least some of the time, necessitate a serious approach to it. Just like it would if it was weaponry or whatever the fuck. Oh fuck, my phone is dying.
Alright, well, like that, I guess I will be reading something else. I'll don't get this shit together. Alright, I will be reading Guns for Hire by Woodkid. Hold the dice, your turn to roll, before they fall through your fingers. Not a good sight to lose control. Right as the earth is unraveling, you play with your blocks until they break. and these walls come tumbling down. Oh, they're tumbling down. You're out of time, make your move, live or die while the fuse is lit and there's no turning back. Kiss your perfect day goodbye, because the world is on fire. Tuck your innocence, good night. You sold your friends like guns for hire. Go play with your blocks, and now you'll pay when these walls come tumbling down. Oh, they're tumbling down. Resting on a knife, your heavy souls, with all this weight buckling down on you now. Don't you drown and float away. Not a good time to lose control. Right as your marionettes, sorry. Right as your marionettes cut their strings and run away, you're out of time. Make your move. Live or die while the fuse is lit, and there's no turning back. Kiss your perfect day goodbye. Live or die while the fuse is lit, and there's no turning back. Kiss your perfect day goodbye because the world is on fire. Take your innocence good night. You sold your friends like guns for hire. Go play with your blocks, and now you'll pay when these walls come tumbling down. Oh, they tumbling down. Alright, now I will be reading What Could Have Been by Ray Chen and Sting. I am the monster you created. You ripped out all of my parts, and worst of all, for me to live, I gotta kill the part of me that saw that I needed you more. I hope you know we had everything, and you broke me and left these pieces. I want you to hurt like you hurt me today, and I want you to lose like I lose when I play what could have been. Oh, what could have been. Why don't you love who I am? What we could have been. I am your ghost, a fallen angel. You ripped out all my parts. I couldn't care what invention you made me, 'cause I was meant to be yours. I hope you know we had everything, and you broke me and left these pieces. I want you to hurt like you hurt me today, and I want you to lose like I lose when I play. I want you to hurt like you hurt me today, and I want you to lose like I lose when I play. It could have been. Okay. Um, okay. I will be reading The Only Thing I Know for Real by Tyson Yen, Logan Mader, and Jamie Christopherson. Memories broken, the truth goes unspoken. I've been I've even forgotten my name. I don't know the season or what is the reason I'm standing here holding my blade. A desolate place without any trace. It's only the cold when I feel. It's me that I spite as I stand up and fight, the only thing I know for real. There will be blood shed. The man in the mirror nods his head. The only one left will ride upon the dragon's back, because the mountains don't give back what they take. Oh no, there will be blood shed. It's the only thing I've ever known. Losing my identity, wondering have I gone insane. To find the truth in front of me, I must climb this mountain range, looking downward from this deadly height and never realizing why I fight. Alright. Okay, now I'll be reading Red Sun by Jason Miller, Logan Mader, and Jamie Christopherson. Red sun over paradise. Red sun over paradise. Golden rays of the glorious sunshine, setting down such a blood-red light. Sorry. Now the animals slowly retreat to the shadows out of sight. Arid winds blow across the mountains, giving flight to the birds of prey. In the distance, machines come to transform Eden, day by day. Only love with us now, something warm and pure. Find the peace within ourselves, no need for a cure. When the wind is slow and the fire's hot, the vulture waits to see what rots. Oh, how pretty, all the scenery. This is nature's sacrifice. When the air blows through, with a brisk attack, the reptile tail rips from its back. When the sun sets, we will not forget The Red Sun over Paradise. Okay. I'm My Own Master Now by Jamie Christopherson. Born into a pack, there's no choice but take orders to attack. Locked up in chains, I get fed, but the hunger still remains. Not content to live this way, being led by the blind, got to plan my dispersal. Time to leave them all behind. Breaking out of my pain, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'm my own master now. Bear the mark of my scars, shedding blood underneath the stars, but I will survive somehow. Hear me howl, time to leave them all behind. I'm my own master now. Okay. Now we have Stains of Time by Kit Walters, Logan Mader, and Jamie Christopherson. Oh. There we go.
Okay. Anyway, moving on, because we really do need to finish this article and move on to some of the next stuff. For at least as long as my phone battery holds out.
Okay. Then I found the crown jewel. Shit your pants spell. Review. It really worked. Thank you. At that point, it was clear I'd need to order multiple curses at different severity levels and price points to guarantee results. After placing my first spell, Make Everyone Hate Him, I was left with more questions than answers. How long would it take to kick in? Should I have splurged for a pricier spell to make it work faster? Shortly after, the witch messaged me trying to upsell me a $50 spell booster. When I asked what it did, she explained it would amplify the energetic support of the main spell, or else I could let it unfold in its natural timing. I decided to trust the witch as well. Okay, you got.
Yeah, that's a con artist. Anyone worth their salt, if they're willing to sell their talents, should be willing to do it at the price originally quoted. Because again, and this is one of those things I was complaining about the propriety of the situation, there's a certain level of professional integrity with these things. If you pay me to do a thing, or even if I'm doing a thing for free, because as both DT and Brainstormer can attest, I am more than willing to give my friends spell recipes if I think they would benefit from them. There's a certain level of professional respect and competency that is inherently contingent upon us as practitioners to do what we do as well as we can. Aside from anything else, because the more lazy bastard spellcasters there are, the less likely people are to even believe in magic. And as someone who would very much prefer if we could get a little bit more respect back, it is therefore incumbent upon me to do what I do as competently, succinctly, and efficiently as possible. So yeah, no, that's a con artist who's bullshitting you, is what that is. That's someone trying to milk the mark for as much money as they can. But I'm sure that this particular person is not the only person gunning for Charlie Kirk, because again, in certain circles online, hipster witches who want to hex everyone they politically disagree with are about a dime a dozen at this point. Moving on.
Sorry. For the powerful hex spell, I had to provide Kirk's date of birth for accuracy. The witch performed the hex, but her response was unsettling. I just completed your spell, and it was successful. You will see the first results within 2 to 3 weeks. However, I did notice disturbances, negative energy not only from you, but projected at you, likely
Con artist.
from toxic family members, coworkers, or new acquaintances.
That's a con artist. One of the oldest fake psychic tricks in the book is to tell your client that they have negative energy targeted at them, and that only you or something you can sell them is a solution to it. And again, as a actual practitioner, if that happened to me, if I found that that someone I was doing a spell for had negative energy surrounding them, I would consider it just sort of implicit in the bargain that I would do whatever I could to undo it. There's also the possibility that some of that negative energy is deserved, and so you probably should be more cautious when you go around fucking with it. Because some of the time, both spiritually as well as in the mundane world, people surround themselves with negativity by their own bullshit standards or by their own bullshit actions, and as the old saying goes, you get what you fucking deserve. But most likely, this is just a con artist doing the oldest con artist trick in the book of of I have the mark on the hook. Let me see how much more money I can squeeze out of them. Because a ethical magical practitioner would probably either inform you of negative energy and show you how to undo it yourself, just implicitly as part of the bargain, or would just do it for free. Because if you genuinely believe someone is under some kind of psychic attack, charging extra for getting rid of it, unless you need the money for like tools or ingredients or something, is a bit sleazy and unethical. It's the magical equivalent of the used car salesman tactic. Moving on, though.
I panicked. I recently replayed Encounters of reset my car shop. She's always rude, so probably not. Then I read the rest of the message. Would you like to purchase a protection spell? Yep. Yeah, you're really right. Jesus.
Magical con artist. And again, I'm beginning to suspect that this person doesn't even believe in magic. They're just taking the mark for all they're worth because there's money in it. So there's that. But then again, the author of this article probably didn't believe in it either, and it's just using it as a political weapon. So it's those who are willing to be conned getting conned. So there's nothing in particular wrong with it. You know, as the old saying goes, there are none so blind as those who will not see. Anyway, moving on.
Another upsell. These witches weren't just spellcasters; they were salesmen, and they had perfected the dark art of the deal. I reached out to a third witch, Priestess Lilin, for clarification. She explained differences in prices aren't really about better slash faster magic, but rather the complexity of the spell work. She told me in an Etsy message. Some work into small, focused intentions with minimal tools, while others are more intricate and involve rarer ingredients, more time, and sometimes even repeated castings to build up and direct the energy toward for our clients.
Okay, that person strikes me as someone who at least wants to be of use to you. It could also be a more uh, skillful con artist, mind you, but at least on first blush, if I was talking to a fellow practitioner and they said something like that, that would be a sign that I think at least they genuinely believe in what they're doing for you. Doesn't mean they're any good at it, still, mind you, but to be honest with you, I'm more inclined to believe someone when they talk about the complexities of something like that, having any idea what they're fucking doing. Because magic is complicated, and there are complexities of ritual of um or complexities of ingredients and so on. So at least at first blush, that sounds like someone who at least wants to do what they are being paid to do, and someone with at least enough common sense to maybe have some idea what they're doing. So you might not have gotten conned in this particular instance. And good on you for realizing that you did probably get conned by the first person. Because yeah, that's a con artist if ever I've seen one, that first person.
Alright, moving on.
Yep, moving on.
I don't know what ingredients she used to curse Charlie. Amaga had submerged in flames and IUD and if enough people cursed a single person, would the results be stronger? When I asked her if she noticed more political figures being targeted these days, she said yes, clients often turn to spells when they feel unheard or powerless in the usual systems. Our magic becomes both a personal release and a way of reclaiming control, she wrote. Whether the target is a boss, an ex, or a public figure, the underlying current is the same. People want to shift the energy in their lives and the world around them.
Okay, again, this person strikes me as a person who genuinely believes in what they're doing and genuinely thinks it's right to do. That being said, she's wrong because magic shouldn't be a fucking political weapon unless it is countering magic being sent at you or a mutual combat scenario. Like during the Second World War, for example, at that point, magical combat is perfectly justifiable because we know for a fact that the Nazis did in fact engage in political spellcasting. So turnabout is fair play and mutual combat is perfectly justified. But I would caution anyone who takes their politics so like histrionically seriously that they think magic is an appropriate response. For me, at least, magic should always be, especially when it's the kind that's negative like this, especially when it's curse work, it should always be a last ditch emergency thing. And you should always take it relatively seriously. So while I am more inclined to believe that the second person actually is a practitioner who actually does mean to cast the spell you intend them to cast, I still would argue with both of you that using magic as a political tool is not, in most cases, a good thing. It's different if someone in your personal life has actually wronged you or someone you care about. But politics should not be a magical um a magical arena unless and until someone else strikes first or it's a mutual combat scenario. If the Trump or if the MAGA types were, you know, engaging in some Golden Dawn style ritualism to fuck with your shit and you wanted to fuck with their shit in return, that would be one thing. But for the most part, most MAGA types don't even believe in magic, and so trying to come at them with magic is an escalation on your part, and using it for politics is so small minded that it's honestly an insult to magic that you would do so. Moving on.
There I was in the year of our Lord 2025, staring at a computer, chatting with a witch on Etsy about the state of the world, hoping that somewhere between the cosmos and the internet, justice would be served.
You might find yourself on the receiving end of that if justice is ever actually served in the like karmic cosmic sense, my dear. Because just because you feel good doesn't make it right, either like in terms of propriety or in terms of morality. And trust me, when it comes to this kind of political woo woo, you're not on the right. I know you want to believe you're on the right side of history, but you're really, really fucking not. And given that most of this kind of magic is like pseudo new agey Wiccan in nature, and therefore abides by the rule of three, or at least is supposed to, you might find yourself on the receiving end of quite a wallop with all of these interweaving spells targeted against your enemies. Because if you're the sort of wiki woo new age type who believes in the rule of three, and therefore you weave that into your spell work, and you do something you know to be harmful to someone, then you're going to wind up getting your own back a bit too much. And given how many spells are cast at these sorts of people, and how many of those spells interact and interweave with each other, the mass backlash you might be receiving at the end of this period may be quite a doozy. Granted, y'all are the kind of hipstery bitches who are the sorts of reasons why I don't use TikTok, so you might actually deserve it by the end. And God only knows what other metaphysical entities you're pissing off, even taking the human angle out of it. Moving on.
The aftermath. The next day, the priestess sent me her proof of cast, a photograph in flames. The edges slowly curving inward, engulfing Charlie's ridiculous, scrunched up little face. She whispered, I imagined, trust the unseen. Chills. I timed the purchase perfectly with the August new moon in Virgo, according to the astrology girls on TikTok. This specific new moon is the perfect time for forming new habits and aligning goals. My personal goal, cursing Kirk, the stars were aligned.
Um, that's not what that means, my dear. That's some very like positive energy, and that's not very positive. That's not very positive intent you have there. You are explicitly trying to hurt someone, and this moon phase was all about letting go of negative patterns and beginning new beginnings. So you might have had the universe bending against you in that vein to begin with. Just because you call yourself the good one doesn't make you the good one, darling. Just because you think you're on the right side doesn't mean you actually are.
Moving on. Done?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. You went quiet and
Oh, it might have been because my phone it might have been because my screen locked. I was too busy fiddling with the charger to pay attention to what the screen was doing.
okay. Um, um, Sunday, August 24th, passed, nothing. Monday, still nothing. Tuesday rolled around and I began to wonder if I'd been scammed. You probably were. But then I reminded
The
myself,
first one, yes. The second one, I genuinely believe the person she paid wanted to cast the spell that she cast at them. So, and I mean, Wednesday did do what Wednesday did. So there's that.
uh, then I reminded myself this is witchcraft, not Amazon. The forces operate on their own schedule. By Wednesday, I checked Charlie's socials to see if he was spouting anything new. And of course, he was. This time, he was weighing in on a Taylor Swift and Travis
Kelsey.
Kelsey's engagement, tweeting, Young women should get married just like Taylor Swift is planning to. You will be happier. Then, on an episode of The Charlie Kirk Show, he told the Taylor Swift to reject feminism, submit to your husband, Taylor. Okay. I don't.
I can agree with the first one because she probably genuinely would be happier if she got married. The reasoning why is complete bullshit, and the whole women submitting to their husband thing or husband submitting to their wives thing. It's it, it it's just it's not even it's not even something that happened historically. It's feminist reframing of what they think the past was like, and a bunch of whiny tradcons uncritically embracing the stereotype of the past that the feminists sold them. One of the reasons I'm very skeptical of both traditionalism and feminism, because neither seems to have any relation to actual, reality. And reality is kind of important when you're talking about history. Moving on.
Dawned on me. The witches don't even need to curse him. The Swifties will handle him now. Let's be real, the Swifties are much scarier. Or was seeking the Swifties onto Kirk the curse actually working?
Frankly, there's probably a lot of crossover between the Fluffy Bunny Wikini types and Swifties, to be honest with you, because both are likely to be hipsters in their 20s and maybe 30s. So there's probably an uncomfortable amount of crossover between Swifties and wannabe witches. Doesn't mean they're any good at it, mind you, but there's probably more crossover between Swifties and Fluffy Bunny witches than anyone would be comfortable with. Anyway, moving on.
Then there was more. According to ABC4, Utah State University students lost a petition to bar Kirk and Turning Point USA from visiting campus artist college tour. Oh, Christ. Charlie Kirk, a highly polarizing figure, does not align with the core values and ideology of Utah State University, strives to epitomize, the petition reads. Petition was launched on Friday, August 22nd, and had already been signed over 3,800 times. Could this be the make everyone hate him at work?
No, because that one was probably casted by, or probably was sold to you by a con artist. The witch that I have at least a tiny amount of respect for is the one that told you, no, I don't charge extra to make things happen quicker or stronger, because that's bullshit. But the first woman, the first one, the make everyone hate him one, was sold to you by a con artist who probably doesn't even believe in magic. Anyway, moving on.
Then I saw the tweet that certified the results. Said it's getting bigger. The post read it alongside the clip of Kirk telling Swift she's not in charge. I believe this is it. Slowly over the course of the coming months, the circumference of Kirk's head will increase inch by inch until he becomes a literal human bobblehead. Or maybe it keeps growing until it eventually pops. Either way, it feels appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to add to that, or
No, moving on.
in Witches We Trust? So did my Etsy curse's work. Time will tell. The forces move in mysterious ways, and as the priestess reminded me, spell work is a collaboration between the caster, the client, and the universe itself. For now, we can only trust in the timing of the great unknown. So thank you to the witches of the modern age who work tirelessly to hex Republicans and topple conservative regimes, and occasionally ex-boyfriend. And the occasional ex-boyfriend. Your work is appreciated, and to you, Mr. Kirk, may the rash come swiftly. Oof.
Again, this article is evidence of you deliberately trying to cast magic out of spite. So even if the priestess you hired, the one that I actually think probably knew at least some of her shit, even if the priestess you hired had just justice and retribution in mind, you explicitly came at this from a spiteful place. So, yeah, like even by the like old school church terms of the or use of the term, this is classic Maleficia and one of the clearest cut cases I've ever seen. And again, most Wiccany woo woo types operate by the rule of three, so I'm not sure what the equivalent of 3 getting shot in the neck with a bullet is, but you might be due for it. Not to mention the exponential nature of all these politically motivated spells weaving together. Which again, you might be surprised when that backlash comes over, because I happen to know with a reasonable degree of certainty that neither of the fairy queens like the politically motivated hipster witches, and I know there are quite a lot of entities that that are at least on good terms with the fairy queens. So you guys might be storing up quite the bit of karmic backlash, given how many entities you pissed off, and given how many like self-destructive mistakes you've made, this is going to come back to bite you in the ass really hard. I just hope I'm not in the blast radius when this comes back to bite you. Because a lot of you Wiccan types say, do what thou wilt, but in it harm none. But when politics is concerned, we'll straight up go out of your way to harm people. So, you're violating your own religion's precepts there. It's nothing off my nose, but, you can't just break your own rules and then make excuses for it. Anyway, next topic. The comic book firing one. Brainstormer?
Oh shit! Sorry, I I thought I was unmuting myself. Instead, I muted myself. Fuck.
Yeah. Okay. At least it wasn't on my end. I thought for a second that my phone's audio cut out.
No, fuck. I'm sorry.
Given that I think this phone is on its very last legs, I'm gonna have to get a new phone as soon as possible. Because fuck me, this is getting ridiculous.
Okay, but this is from the HollywoodReporter.com, written by Aaron Couch, published September 11th. DC cancels Red Hood comic book series after writer shares inflammatory posts following Charlie Kirk's shooting. And hey, Don, I'm going to be fully honest.
Mm.
I think after this article, we could do one of the articles we had planned to do, and then the trailers.
Right. Right.
Hold on. Okay. Gretchen Flecker Martin was behind the title, which DC said would be pulled. Posts or public comments that can be viewed as promoting hostility or violence are inconsistent with DC standards of conduct.
Okay. Here's the thing. I don't support deplatforming or firing artists based on their political opinions. That being said, as Brainstormer and I were talking about before the show, she probably should have been fired or never hired in the first place on the basis that her art is shit. But if her art being shit isn't enough to sink her on its own merits, or rather on its own lack of merits, I should say, then you shouldn't fire them. Then you shouldn't fire them for political optics reasons. Am I upset that this person has lost their job? Not particularly, because as it as I said, she wasn't particularly good at her job anyway, and was probably only kept on for political bias reasons. So, all in all, I would have seen her fired or not hired in the first place. But as a general rule, if someone is good at their job, you should not fire them about politics or optics. If they're good at their job, they should keep their job. If you happen to have politically promoted someone just for political reasons and they were never good at their job, though, yeah, I'm not going to shed an abundance of tears when the wind changes and that very same politics that apparently made them fail upward to that degree bites them on the ass because she wasn't very good at her job to begin with. So I would prefer to go back to a world in which we hire artists because they're good at art and not for political or ideological reasons, please.
I remember people talking about this. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm looking at this. First poem he read after Black Parade. Sorry, it's Jangel's comments about the things I was reading earlier. Um, I don't know which one I read actually during Turtle after Black Parade. I have to go back in the stream and look because I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I think it was. I think it might have been Guns for Hire. It's a song from Arcane. Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna look up because there was a description that got everyone in a huffy, in a not huffy. About the comic. Hold on. Gretchen.
Yes, GT, I suppose it is a general rule of life, but as someone with a particular fixation on magic, I was more interested in the particular relationships with magic in that instance.
Okay. So apparently Gretchen Felker Martin is an American horror author and film and TV critic.
I haven't read any of her work, but I'm willing to bet that if she made a living as a critic before becoming a comic book writer, her opinion is almost worthless because modern day critics are not, their opinions are worthless at best, actively the opposite of reality at worst at this point. It's one of those who can't teach sorts of things. Well, those who can't make good art frequently make a living as critics. And no, obviously not all. Some critics are critics because they actually know what they're fucking talking about. And some people are good at being critics specifically because they are good at examining why a certain piece of art doesn't work.
Okay.
But in today's modern day and age, more often than not, a critic's opinion on any given piece of art is not worth the paper it's printed on, especially if it's a mainstream media critic.
Okay, hold on. Okay. Um. Okay, so I'm looking at a. Well, I'll read it later. Oh, okay. Wait. Okay, here was the. What was it? Yeah, so the comic book it's an adults only, like new mature reader comic book series. So the mainstream DC continuity. Red Hood was going to.
No, no, DT. We can see your comments. You're good. You haven't been unpersoned by the algorithm.
No. It's just we were kind of busy reading the article, so I do apologize for not reading your comments.
But yeah, you're fine, DT. You haven't been banned. You haven't been sent to the YouTube shadow realm. You're good. We can see you.
Yeah. Again, that's my fault. I wanted to get through that article because we were on that for too long.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah, I just okay. Anyway, we'll read this and I'll talk about the comic. DC has shelved its Red Hood comic book series following writer Gretchen Felker Martin sharing post on Blue Sky that joked about the shooting of Charlie Kirk, who was killed by an assassin's bullet Wednesday. Hope the bullet's okay after touching Charlie Kirk. Read one post. Thoughts and prayers, you Yahtzee bitch. Obviously, I'm sure everyone can understand the term I mean there.
Yep.
Written by Felker Martin. The writer is trans, while Kirk was known for his anti-trans stance. Felker Martin's Blue Sky account is now deactivated, but those posts were screenshotted and widely spread before DC canceled the series.
Again, I don't think authors or writers or artists of any kind should be losing jobs for the sake of political optics.
But I still think joking about a man's death as recent as that is a bit crossing a line. I'm not saying it's right to deplatform them and all that. Obviously, I'm just saying I feel like there has to be some tact there. Hello? Done. And you're gone again. Okay, well, I will read another song. Oh, okay. Stains of Time by Kit Walters, Logan Mader, and Jamie Christopherson.
I'm not gone. Hello.
You were super quiet, dude.
God damn it. My phone. I need to replace my phone is what I need to do. I've been putting it off because I'd rather buy other things with money, but I need to get a new phone soon.
Okay, I was saying don't. I was trying to.
I did not hear you. But anyway, what I was saying was I don't support people being fired for political reasons, but I don't support people being hired for political reasons either. And given that this person is very clearly an ideologue and that they very clearly aren't good at being an artist, I'm willing to bet they got the job because of political nepotism. So I'm not going to weep for them when they lose their job based on the very same political nepotism. I prefer a world in which we hire artists based on their skill at art and hang their politics entirely. But, that's just me. You shouldn't be fired for politics, but you also shouldn't be hired for politics. And if you're an inept twat who fails upward because of their politics, then you can fail downward because of your politics in turn, and I'm not going to weep for you. That's my 2 cents on the matter.
Okay. Moving on.
Yep, moving on.
Okay. At DC Comics, we place the highest value on our creators and community and affirm the right to peaceful individual expression of personal viewpoints. Posts or public comments that can be viewed as promoting hostility or violence are inconsistent with DC standards of conduct, a DC spokesperson said in a statement to the Hollywood Reporter.
I'm chalking this up to the lawyers because DC editorial has said a lot of really heinous shit on Twitter over the years and explicitly demonized political figures or been grateful for political figures and everything. So this is something they did for lawyer reasons. This isn't a standard of principle or even a standard of corporate policy, because I've seen comics pros for both DC and Marvel get away with a lot worse, a lot more consistently. I think this one was just an optics fail.
Right.
And the lawyers came in and said, you have to punish them for this, otherwise we're getting sued into oblivion.
Well, the Kirk post got attention online over the past 24 hours. Insiders stressed that it was merely the final straw that broke the camel's back, rather than the sole reason for Red Hood's cancellation. Any post viewed as promoting hostility or violence would break the company's social media policy. As of Thursday afternoon, law enforcement officials were still searching for the shooter behind Kirk's death. The violent incident sent ripples through the worlds of politics and media, with Comedy Central pulling an episode of South Park that mocked Kirk.
Okay, I don't support that either, especially because Charlie Kirk didn't have a problem with South Park criticizing him. Like, Charlie Kirk explicitly reacted to the South Park episode criticizing him, and he took it in good humor. So fuck that noise entirely. I don't support the censorship of art of any kind.
So it's getting political and egotistical. A big problem with critics is something we are seeing in general audiences now, that they read too much media, everything is old and tired, and they crave the new.
Yeah, the newness bias thing is an issue, and I don't like that. But I've always been of the opinion that the things that matter about a piece of fiction should be things like in-universe logic, in-universe characterization, and in-universe world building. Themes at best should be tertiary, if they become applicable at all, and all this hyperfixation on non-diegetic literary theory crap is poisoning every facet of the art world. Anyway, moving on.
All right. Okay, hold on. Let me. Okay. Okay. The first issue of Red Hood arrived in comic shops on Wednesday, the day outspoken MAGA activist and conservative media figure Kirk was killed while speaking at Utah Valley University. The comic, intended to be part of an ongoing series with future issues planned for October and November, centered on Jason Todd, a former Robin who has adopted the anti-hero persona of Red Hood. Okay, so I want to be fair, I want to point this out. They haven't really known what. To be fair, they haven't known what to do with a lot of the Bat family in a long while.
DC continuity itself has been an absolute clusterfuck for at least 10 years.
Maybe longer, actually. A little longer. I'm not gonna.
Right, obviously, but even the New 52 had significant problems. So yeah, it is considerably longer than that. But pretty much since like the early 2000s, both comic book companies have kind of been running on fumes. Social justice infiltration and all that shit doesn't help. In fact, it made it 1,001 times worse. But yeah, DC and Marvel have both been running on fumes since like the latter part of the early 2000s.
Right. Actually, Dragon Turtle, if Dawn had said anything, I probably would have gone to Collective Consciousness soon in the reading. That's a song. Don't worry about it. I should actually have that saved on my phone. I think about it, but anyway. Yeah, from what I understand of this book and like how it was pitched or advertised, no one liked it.
Yeah, it's another in a long list of books from DC and Marvel that are made by people for ideological reasons and not artistic ones.
Well, no, it's not even that. It's just like it either I think no one liked it because it didn't get Jason Todd, and it was basically, honestly, a lot of books for some reason, like a lot of comic books in relatively recent years,
Mm,
like the really bad ones,
mm.
uh, are basically like the writer's barely disguised fetishes.
Or soapbox. Usually a bit of both.
Okay, I'm not getting to the soapbox thing, man, because that's not really what's the point here. Well, in what I'm saying about the comic.
Why? What did they do to Jason that was fetishistic?
Uh, God, I can't. There were videos I had seen of it, but I don't remember the specifics. I know people didn't like his costume because it's basically just he's basically wearing all black and only like it's a terrible costume. Um. Okay. Stu mentioned New Orleans flavored backdrop above. New series takes Jason Todd out of Gotham to the city of New Angelique, a corrupt city where he might be able to put down roots, if not for two problems. Firstly, there's a serial killer to be targeting cops to be dealt with. Secondly, he's not the only farmer Gotham says. Oh, okay. Huntress is in here too.
I
No one really.
trust the writing to be better. It would be interesting, but I can't trust the writing to be good. So
Okay. And
just down with him.
welcome back. Okay, that's fair, Dragon Turtle. The fetish thing isn't that new to comics. That's actually pretty fair. To be fair, it's a lot more. I'm not gonna say it's tasteful back then, but it was used. Uh,
Incorporated into the quality of the story and or book and or character and or world building instead of just blank like bland crappy self-indulgence on the part of the writers.
okay, hold on. The editor. It delivers high stakes action, a gripping mystery, and raw, unapologetic storytelling. Every element of the book highlights the core aspects of Jason's character, his difficulties with personal connections, his badass training, his brooding hotness, and his violent approach to heroism, which means he'll be killing people a lot. Let me repeat myself. This is the story Jason Todd fans have been waiting for. And I want to point this again. Yes, thank you, Giant. Less overt, less ham-fisted, less spiteful and caring about the audience, less smug. Yeah, all that. Again, as I have seen videos of Jason Todd fans talk about this comic, like when it was being advertised and stuff, they did not like it because it's the basic understanding of Jason Todd post Under the Red Hood.
Also, a little bit of a unironically red flag in that summary, his brooding hotness.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm all for fan fiction, but not in the story. Damn it.
Yeah, it's in continuity as well.
And again, even if you wanted to focus on him being sexy, because let's face it, there are definitely runs of certain characters that focused on their sexy. Cough, cough, Power Girl, cough, cough, Dick Grayson, cough. But you should still weave it into the story and the world and the character and the like continuity. You shouldn't just publish your fan fiction in continuity with no semblance of skill or effort or artistic merit to it, and then be surprised when people call you out for being just vapid and vacuous and utterly hipstery, which I'm sure it is.
All right. You know what? I will find a photo real quick of the design for Jason that they had, and I'll
I've
show.
seen pictures of the new design. It's absolutely shit. And even the art, like even the actual like competence of the art style itself is bad. But that's been That's unfortunately been a thing since at least like 2015, 2016-ish for both
I know.
major
I'm doing this for
companies.
more doing this for our audience. To be fair,
Hmm.
Oh, okay. They got the cover for the first one. It's weird. Like, I don't mind that he has a hood, but it could be so much better.
Hmm.
Okay, hold on.
If they actually bothered to put in effort for 5 seconds.
Hold on. There we go. Okay. And that was the end of the article.
Hmm.
Okay, hold on.
Next.
I'm just getting the image real quick.
Yep.
Hold on. Oh, God damn it, not that. I also gave him the skunk stripe back, as it's been called.
Hmm.
I don't mind it. Because I think it adds. Because often, actually, if you like the robins kind of together, right?
Hmm.
They look very similar. So giving the hair distinction is good call.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's super bad, right? Like the all black kind of thing.
It looks empty and incomplete is the thing.
Also the mask too. Like I get he's wearing a domino mask under his like helmet, which is actually the most iconic part of his design. Always
Hmm.
looks skin coated. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Giant Turtle. To
This
be
is
fair,
this is this is what happens after a decade of demonizing any consideration to style and aesthetics.
I don't mind that he's wearing a hoodie. I just wish it was more stylized. Giant Turtle.
I think they could have incorporated a hood into his design without just making it a hoodie.
There was one where there was like one series like Red Hood and Arsenal where like they kind of did like a Heroes for Hire situation
Mm.
where they had a design with the helmet and the hood. It was like a
Right?
vest kind of look.
Mm.
I um, which I think worked. Um, I also the Arkham Knight design they had for Red Hood is also pretty good because they combine the helmet with the hood as well.
Mm.
Um, to be okay, I don't the civilian looking clothing. That's to be fair, he's never gone super. When Jason Todd became Red Hood, the costume wasn't like super. Well, it wasn't really costumey. To be fair, it was more tactical looking.
Mm.
So, granted, it had a little more style or that's actually fair control. To be fair, I really wish the Bat Family would get a lot more. To be fair, okay. So, be fully honest, I am somewhat kind of sick of Batman getting the spotlight, but the Bat Family, which is kind of supposed to be a core integral part of Bruce's arc, of him getting that, uh, don't get a lot of shine, which is unfortunate.
Mm.
Um, just part of what I love to point out about the leftists. They can only get surface details about anything outside of their lives, and that's why anything they write sounds like they got some. I'm waiting for the next comment. But okay, you just want to do the trailers now, or okay?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, let me.
Because I don't know how much how much more effort I'm gonna have to put into fiddling with my phone.
Okay. Just part of what I love to point out about the leftists, they can only get surface details about anything outside of their lives, and that's why anything they write about sounds like they got some hipster friends together to cosplay and read some cheesy lines while giggling about how stupid this whole thing is.
Yeah, the
Yeah, that's
inability to take anything seriously or think about things beyond themes is it's a problem with the art school attitude in general. I don't even necessarily think it's unique to the left or unique to leftist. It's a problem inherent with this character world building in universe logic style aesthetic characterization and what have you doesn't matter. It's all about my themes and my authorial intent and my socio-political gobbledygook or moral gobbledygook. It's that it's sadly enough, the problem is the very same people who talk about media literacy. Media literacy is at this point almost like a refutation of itself because anyone who uses the phrase media literacy most likely doesn't have it. Because typically the people who use the term media literacy are the people who insist on nothing but the non-diegetic themes and sociopolitical and moral woo and the authorial intent matter. They will actively call you media illiterate for giving a shit about in-universe logic, about world building, about continuity, about anything that doesn't pertain to the non-diegetic authorial intent or moral and political gobbledygook in some way. And we wonder why they can't make art. They made everything central to the story irrelevant, or at least they tried to frame everything central to the story as irrelevant at best and illiterate at worst, and frame everything tertiary to the story, or frankly counterproductive to the story, as central to it.
Alright. Okay, he also brings some other points, and then we'll move on. Getting to another thing about how they can't actually take anything serious with nerd stuff. It needs to be all self-aware and find itself an audience stupid. Yeah, that's actually, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Uh, See, okay, I will say this. I don't mind self-awareness if it's how to put this. Because I've
It,
written characters to have self-awareness, but it's more so realizing how insane they find themselves in a situation in context to the
if it's a loving self-awareness rather than a destructive or deconstructive self-awareness, I think is the issue.
yeah. For people who talk about empathy, their empathy is dead. It's why I hate write what you know. A lot of people take that as just tell your story with various layers of allegory and metaphor. I can understand that. Granted, I mean, I kind of use that, but I more use it as inspiration to write.
Yeah, but you use it in the term it act in the way it's actually supposed to mean rather than just rather than basically using storytelling as your Twitter feed, which is which is the way most people take the write what you know adage. It's not supposed to be it, and again, self inserts are not the problem. If you do a self insert correctly, self inserts can be awesome. Like how Harry Dresden is very much Jim Butcher's self insert. Um or like how me and Brainstormer have done self inserts before. Self inserting isn't the problem. It's it's frankly you can't really do a proper self insert character if you don't know anything about yourself. And if especially if you're unwilling or incapable of acknowledging any of the negative parts of yourself. If you have to frame every aspect of yourself as I'm always in the right and never do anything wrong or complex or am never altered by the setting I'm in, that's not self inserting because that's not you actually being honest about or with yourself. A proper self insert can work if you're willing to bring some of your character flaws along with you, and also don't give your self-insert character script reading powers, because that's the other mistake a lot of people make when they make self-insert characters. They don't make a version of themselves who exist in the story they're telling. They give their self-insert character the ability to read ahead in the script and make themselves right on that basis. And that's not proper self-inserting. Self-inserting requires one, a self, and two, an insertion, i.e., if you tell a self-insert story, you should be telling a story where someone resembling you is placed inside the universe of the story you are telling, and can't just Zach Morris stop time every time they have a problem.
Okay. It's fine if you do so, not fine if you say that is the only way to. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Like everything in it has to be a side of you or someone in your life or personification of something non-human like anxieties or hopes or society. It's fine if you do so, not fine if you say that is the only way. This interpretation of what you know stems from how can you understand anything but your lived experiences. That's why I say know what you write instead. Basically, they make a Mary Sue. See overly sarcastic definition.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dragon Turtle. I think know what you write is a better way of phrasing it. Because here's the thing. What that is supposed to mean is be informed on a subject matter or have a solid perspective on something before trying to use it as fodder for your story. Like, for example, I really wish I really wish we lived in a world where YouTube fan creators got to write for mainstream characters, because, for example, a erstwhile acquaintance of mine, I'm not sure if I would consider a friend really, because I don't know if he really likes me all that much. But there's a guy we know called Weaponized Nerd Rage, and Weaponized Nerd Rage is a massive fan of the Punisher, and he also happens to be a gun expert. So him writing a Punisher story is something I would be interested in, because he knows a lot about the characters, like in universe backstory and things, and has a like positive regard for the character, but he's also a gun nut who knows a lot about firearms, which would be an extremely useful knowledge base if you're writing the Punisher. So, and yes, that does kind of apply to me to some degree. Of it would be interesting to me to see a story about a magic user character written by someone who at least is familiar with the subject matter of magic. And again, I would still approach things from an in-universe storytelling standpoint, because the magic system of the DC universe or the Marvel universe, well, both for the most part do a good job of accurately reflecting magic in at least some ways, are unique to them. For example, Marvel has a whole bunch of entities that are unique to that setting, and so even for the sake of magical accuracy, I wouldn't sacrifice the unique characters that are unique to that setting if I was writing a magic user story in the Marvel universe. But I'm willing to bet that my geeky knowledge of the characters and my more than 19 years of experience, right, being a magic user, would probably be of use to me if I was ever allowed to write for the characters that I love so much. Both because I would respect them from a fanboy perspective, but also because I would probably sneak in as much like magical accuracy as I possibly could manage without, breaking the setting or the character.
Um, okay. Even if you are making it up, know what you are talking to yourself. Know what you are talking to yourself so you don't paint yourself into a corner. Yeah, that's fair.
Also, it would help. It would help if writers were essentially fans of their own work. This is one of the reasons I like Jim Butcher a lot, because a lot of times when he talks at length about Dresden Files and things about Dresden Files, he talks like a fan would. And frankly, that's a much healthier mindset to be in, to be a fan of your own work, than to see your work as basically a means of stroking your own ego, which I think is a failure that a lot of modern day artists have, is they use their own work as a means to an end rather than an end in itself. Whereas if you look at your own work from a fan perspective, you're actually, I think, more capable of being objective with your work than you would be if you saw the purpose of everything you create uh, to be a means of stroking your own ego or expounding your own opinions on shit.
Um, Sorry, I'm just not realizing. I'm just realizing your icon looks like a poster for like a magic show.
Are you attempting to insult me because you're dangerously close to the lip of insulting me with that?
Okay, look at your icon. Tell me it doesn't.
I don't spend a lot of time looking at posters for magic shows.
Okay, well, I'm
Uh,
obviously not saying like
on
monkey.
the grounds that I think the entire profession of the stage illusionists that call themselves magicians should stop existing. Frankly, we would be better off if stage illusionists were honest and called themselves stage illusionists instead of magicians.
I'm just saying it looks fairly similar to the old timey like sideshow attraction. Honestly, you look like Satara. Okay, that's why I was going with it.
I
Okay,
suppose that is also generally how I dress, though. So it's
okay. Well,
really it's a stylized AI picture of me is what it was going for there. But
I know, and okay. Well, yeah, I think you also have to realize that you dressed like a stage magician. Then
okay, you are dangerously close to actually insulting me with that one.
bow tie, dress shirts, top hat.
Yeah, but
Tell me wrong.
frankly, frankly, we need to bring back the world where every respectable high class gentleman dressed like that.
Motherfucker, you
In
live in a trailer park.
No, I don't.
Well, you live in the
Li-
middle. You're a hillbilly still.
right, but not one in a trailer park. We live in a double wide, thank you. The fact that my backyard is also has a cornfield and a swamp in it is completely irrelevant to this.
Is it though?
And fuck you preemptively.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually fair to control. It can be also like a circus ringleader thing. Uh, don't say illusions shouldn't exist because most people on the planet not believing magic being real. It's like saying scientists shouldn't exist for their insult against magic.
No, it's saying that we shouldn't call things things they are not, especially when the things that are not the things are more common than the things. It it's exactly the same rationale as
I'm not convince him to drop the picture, Drandro. I'm just saying like I was looking at it and
I'm saying, for example, we shouldn't let feminists say that they are about equality because that is slander against every actual egalitarian.
Okay. I'm sorry. I felt pointing out something, and clearly it hit a sore spot for you. I apologize. I should try to convince you not to do the whole abolish t-shirts thing, dude.
No, t-shirts are an inferior form of dress, and they're a symptom of society's stylistic degeneration. God damn it!
Okay, I wear
The
t-shirts.
Victorians had a lot of shit wrong, but they knew how to dress properly. We should go back to that style of dress.
I don't know about that. Uh, but I need to wear t-shirts for work. Like they're a lot more breathable and easier to wear. And again, I do a lot of manual labor, so I feel they're kind of necessary for me.
Yeah. Just for the record, DT, I'm not opposed to stage illusionists existing. In fact, if they called themselves that and were honest about the shit they were doing, I wouldn't have a problem with them. The issue is they call themselves magicians when they are not, and for most people, stage illusionists are more common than actual practitioners, and it persists in the notion of magic not existing as a result thereof. I.e., when a child finds out the stage illusionist is doing trickery to accomplish their ends, a lot of them, unfortunately, get into the mindset of, well, therefore, the supernatural or the magical in general must not exist. It's the same thing with the when certain people find out that Santa Claus isn't real, they go hard materialist skeptic in the there's no such thing as ghost style, and I don't think that's healthy either. Stage illusionists who are honest about their illusionism, I have no problem with. It's the category error and the poisoning of the well that that entire profession passively begets that I have an issue with. In the same way as feminists should not be allowed to call themselves advocates for equality because that's not the actual ideology they have, and it makes it hard to be an egalitarian when you say I am in favor of equality of opportunity and people think that you must therefore believe in things like the patriarchy.
Uh, so can we move on now? Sorry, I just realized we went on a really weird tangent there, or like several tangents in one. And Dawn, if you're talking, I cannot hear you. Central, can you hear Dawn talking, or okay? Yeah, nice. And okay, he's gone. Okay, well, I will be continuing to read stuff. Let me just find my stuff here. Okay. Okay. Stands of Time by Kit Walters. Wash away the anger. Here I stand beneath the warm and soothing rain, droplets falling gently down on the terrain. But there's no memory, it's only dry inside, in the mud and sinking deeper into a peaceful life. And it will come like a flood of pain pouring down on me, and it will not let up until the end is here. And it will come through the darkest day, in my final hour, and it will never rest until the clouds are clear, until it finds my dreams have disappeared. All right. It Has to Be This Way by Jimmy Neko. Standing here, I realize you were just like me, trying to make history. But who's to judge the right from wrong when our guard is down? I think we'll both agree that violence breeds violence, and in the end, it has to be this way. I carved my own path, you followed your wrath, but maybe we're both the same. World has turned, and so many have burned, but nobody is to blame. Yet staring across this barren, wasted land, I feel no life will be born beneath the blood-stained sand. Okay. A Stranger I Remain by Free Dominguez. I've come here from nowhere, across the unforgiving sea, drifting further and further. It's all becoming clear to me. The violent winds are upon us, and I can't sleep. Eternal temperatures rising, and all the voices won't recede. I finally found what I've been looking for, a place where I can be without remorse, because I am a stranger who has found an even stranger war. I finally found what I was looking for. Here I come. Here I come. La chaleur me dérange, mais c'est le grincement des bateaux que m'a révélé. I sharpen the knife and look down upon the bay.
Okay, moving on to trailers now because we need to hurry this along because I don't know how long my phone and the cord are and the charger cord are going to get along.
Right. Okay. So I ask your question to answer your question, Jared Troll. Yes, I did have Hot Wind Blowing. That was actually going to be the song I read next, but I wanted to read the I Stranger I Remain. I'm just not realizing these songs are a lot shorter in terms of lyrics. Granted, they're like video game songs, so they're meant to go with gameplay, like boss. So yeah, so this is the official for Wake Up Dead Man and Knives Out Mystery, the third one. Uh, I think Knives Out movies are actually pretty fun for the most part. I know Glass wasn't as well received as the first one. And he's gone again. Well, I don't know if I should call it there or not. Uh, hmm. Okay. All right. Well, rules of I said I'd do Hot Wind Blowing. Hot Wind Blowing by John Bush. Hot wind blowing, jagged lines across the sand. Crumbling buildings in our minds are all that stand. Just like the buffalo, blindly following the herd, we try to justify all the things that have occurred. I know what I've been told, but the wishes of the people can't be controlled. I know what I've been told, but the wishes of the people can't be controlled. Heat of the desert, dust settles on my face without a compass. Soldier knows no disgrace. Out of the ashes, the eagle rises still. Freedom is calling to all men who bend their will. Here I am, dirty and faceless, waiting to heed your instruction. On my own, invisible warrior, I am a wind of destruction. All men who bend their will. We fight for justice in a forgotten place, fulfill our duty, then vanish without a trace. Don't need a medal for all the men we kill. Freedom is calling to all men who bend their will. Wind of destruction. All right. You know what? Let's do Rules of Nature by Jamie Christopherson. Time has come to an end. Yeah, this is what nature planned. Being tracked by a starving beast, looking for its daily feast. A predator on the verge of death, close to its daily feast. Oh, sorry. Looking for its daily feast. A predator on the verge of death, close to its last breath. Getting close to its last breath. Rules of nature. And they run when the sun comes up, with their lives on the line, alive. For all that I've for all that I've no choice. Gotta follow the laws of the wild. Live. With their lives on the line, no choice. Out here only the strong survive. What's done is done. Survive to see another day. Game of life. The hunter and the agile prey. No guarantee which of them will succeed. Strong or weak, rules of nature. Okay. And one you brought up earlier, Dragon Troll, Collective Consciousness by Jimmy Necco. The unenlightened masses, they cannot make the judgment call, give up free will forever, their voices won't be heard at all. Display obedience while never stepping out of line, and blindly swear allegiance, let your country control your mind. Live in ignorance and purchase your happiness. When blood and sweat is the real cost, thinking ceases, the truth is lost. Don't you worry, you'll know exactly what to do. I give my people the lives they need, the righteous will succeed. The fires of greed will burn the weak, so we'll make freedom obsolete, making whole the fabric of society, collective consciousness controlled as you will see. Let your country control your soul. Let your country control your soul. Let country control your soul. Um, all right. Uh, I'll get a newer one. This is To the Wilder by Woodkid. All right. So I had to get a drink. To all the words that I won't get to say, the things that time steals and turns to pain. If it's not love to let you leave again, I don't know what is. But if you doubt and question what the future holds, remember there's no place you can't call home. All the roads that we are yet to pave, the dreams that stillness entertains and slays. Now if my love for you won't make you stay, I don't know what will. You will never leave a trace where you walk, if the only path you take's the one you're told. So walk away, I'll find you. So far away, I'll reach you. To the wilder you. To the wilder, to the wilder, to the wilder you. To all the walls that we are meant to break, the part of us that still remains untamed. We must be more than the animals in chains. It's a poison that kills. Would you let the wind tell you where to go if you can brave faith and prove it wrong? So walk away, I will find you. So far away, I'll reach you. To the wilder you. To the wilder, to the wilder, to the wilder you. To all the mountains, all the rivers, to all the strays, the trailblazers, to what it takes to walk forever, to what it takes to be who you are, to the wilder, to the wilder, to the wilder you.
All right, we might have to just call it because I am getting fucking sick of fighting with my phone.
Yeah, I was concerned. I wanted to see if you felt the same when you came back. So
Yeah, I've I've gotten it to hold on for just long enough to open up Twitter, and then it fucking cuts out again, and I don't. I'm just oh god, I'm annoyed.
okay,
I hate getting new phones, but I'm gonna have to.
you remember all your passwords and stuff.
That's not the issue. The I just don't want to lose all my app data. And for some reason, when I get a new phone, the apps don't carry over like they're supposed to.
Huh. You are a cult the sorcerer, so magical energy affecting technology and stuff. So that are just bad luck. But yeah, I suppose we will call it here. Uh, with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, and shalom and fuck off.